Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today. Welcome to filmandtvreview.com. Catch the latest film, TV and streamed show reviews every week. The views and opinions expressed by the authors and those providing comments are theirs alone. They do not reflect the views, opinions or position of filmandtvreview.com or their respective parent companies or affiliates. Filmandtvreview.com makes no representations as to accuracy, completeness, correctness, suitability, or validity of any information in this program and is for entertainment purposes only. Episodes may contain adult humor and language. For full terms and conditions, see filmandtvreview.com.
Hello there. So welcome to another edition of Film and TV Review. It's a bit of a Star Wars special. It's on the back of the Mandalorian season 3 has finished quite recently. So I'm joined by some of our regular crew, Andrew and Richard, and we're kind of going to give our thoughts on this season. Of course, it's available on Disney Plus, but it's quite had a promising start with seasons 1 and 2, and follows on from 5 years after Return of the Jedi, and pretty interesting season this one. So I thought we just join our crew and ask them what they thought of this season. So who would like to give the initial volley? Richard, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I don't know where to start. To be honest, there's a lot of things to say, so that's good for this meetup. I would say that surprisingly, I might have enjoyed this season more than the first 2 seasons. I understand online actually that a lot of people felt actually that it was of a lesser quality. Not sure why. Well, it's interesting. I mean, just to put things into context, this third season picks up after Boba Fett, because obviously people who didn't watch Boba Fett might get lost because they wouldn't understand why. So we go in full spoiler, obviously, Jason, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, at the end of season 2, Grogu goes and to be trained by Luke Skywalker, and it's a very heartbreaking scene, etc. And then Boba Fett was so bad that actually they had to bring back Mandalorian in Boba Fett's TV show, and within Boba Fett TV show, Grogu and Mandalorian get reunited, and in a way, Grogu changed completely his mind and go back to Mando and give up on his training, which kind of mess up everything, because in a way the whole payoff of that wonderful ending of season 2 is now is kind of ruined. But anyway, so now season 3 and Mandalorian and Grogu are together, and in a way the main storyline, I guess, of the season is, I guess, I'm going to use a Fast and Furious famous word. The main topic is family. No, I'm just realizing this now. I didn't write anything. I'm just thinking about this now. In a way, obviously, the first 2 seasons of Mandalorian and the whole show is an homage to westerns, and the fact that actually that Mandalorian is kind of a lone wolf going from one place to another, and then he meets this kid who's going to become his son, etc. So that's another first thing, but actually that he starts to be attached to. And now in the third season, he gets back to his roots, to being a Mandalorian and trying to become back a Mandalorian, because for that, between you and me, that stupid rule, but actually if you take off your helmet, you actually lose your title of Mandalorian. So he wants to become back a Mandalorian because it's important to him, but also the whole Mandalorian tribes get together to rebuild their own planets and restart from scratch, let's say, their civilization. So yeah, the unity and the fact actually that you cannot do things by yourself is kind of maybe the main topic of the main storyline of the season 3. I found it actually interesting because I always say that I hate Westerns, and maybe that was my main complaint about this show, is that it had all the cliches about a guy actually alone going from one place to another. It was boring. And actually, maybe that the couple of scenes of episodes of season 3 that I didn't like were, again, the fact that for me, they were useless because they looked a lot like Western standalone stories. For example, that the whole episode almost of going to save a kid in a dragon's nest or whatever. I was thinking, what the hell am I watching? Or the first episode that was useless. For some mysterious reason, they try to save a droid that we saw only once, and apparently it's a very important droid. I was thinking, okay, I don't know. But fortunately, it was the only 2 times that I felt bored. Because, as I said, I kind of liked the whole Mandalorian lore and mythology, and the fact actually that it's a huge civilization that was destroyed, and they tried to start again from scratch, and that actually different tribes don't trust each other. I thought actually that there is something here more interesting, actually, that the more interesting man, the only story of whatever his name, the Mandalorian he is. Only him by himself, I think it's a bit boring, but when they extend to the whole Mandalorian culture, I actually like that part. I also love the politics. Surprisingly, I was thinking about that when I watched episode, I think it's the 3rd episode, when it's mostly on Coruscant, centered on this Dr. ex-Imperial guy who's been pardoned, like a lot of Imperial guys after Return of the Jedi. I thought actually that there was a lot of potential here. What I mean is that the only good thing about the prequels that I liked back then was the politics, actually. I remember the hatred that the prequels had, and maybe the main thing that I really enjoyed back in the day when I was a teenager, etc., watching the prequels, was the politics. Seeing actually, yes, in sci-fi, but actually inspired by real events, how it's easy from a republic to go down to become a dictatorship. And here there is potential, and you can see it in the 3rd episode, in my opinion. You can see that when you have a revolution, kind of a revolution in Return of the Jedi, and you have a very unstable new republic, it can crumble, it can collapse quite quickly. And this gap between Return of the Jedi and the sequel trilogy, it would have been interesting to see maybe even one TV show only about that, actually, about how this unstable republic realized actually how difficult it is to maintain peace on huge galaxy, whatever. And actually that there are a lot of people actually who are, what's the verb, reminiscing or remembering in a good way the empire, and wants actually the empire back. I really like that. I really like those scenes about, as I said, ex-imperials trying to live a normal life, etc. Because it made me think that, again, it's very inspired by real life. It makes me think about the French Revolution. And in 1789, there's the French Revolution, and let's say it's Return of the Jedi. But then what people actually might not know is that for 15 years after that, it was a mess in France because it was so unstable and it was so difficult actually to have people having power. So unstable actually that a dictator again got power 15 years later, Napoleon. So I do like a parallel with Star Wars, saying that, yeah, you have a revolution, everybody is happy, but it's hard actually to maintain that kind of regime. And maybe that's actually what they tried actually to imply here in this season with the Imperials actually who actually are secretly having a shadow council and trying actually to prepare the rebirth of the empire with Great Admiral Thrawn and eventually, unfortunately, with the First Order, etc. It is a bit like like a bit like French history of the 19th century, but it's true in a way for any human society that actually it's extremely hard actually to keep a political system like this. Anyway, that was my 2 cents about politics, but yeah, I really like that part. Back to the Mandalorian itself. I thought actually that why I enjoyed it also is because I was impressed by every single episode visually. I wasn't that impressed, surprisingly, in the first 2 seasons, but in this, there are a lot of scenes in this season were visually striking and also very well shot. I really, really enjoyed that, especially in the final episode, but not only in the final episode. Actually, the whole season was beautiful, to be honest. I think that's kind of it for my overall thoughts. I'm trying to think. Yeah, the problem is what's come next. I don't know. I think they are going nowhere after that. I think there is kind of for me for an ending. This is an ending for the Mandalorian, so I hope that there won't be a season 4. To be honest with you, I hope there would be a TV show about Mandalore, period, but not himself, because I think that's it for him. I think we will see him only in the movie where all TV show characters will meet together to face Thrawn in 10 years from now, but not by himself. That's my hope. Yeah. So that's it for me, Jason.
Hey, thanks, Richard. Yeah, quite a lot of a world building element to this, kind of the power vacuum and the kind of like different fractionations of who's going to have their little stake in the territories or the ruling territories, new clans, and especially with the Mandalorian. So certainly that's some interesting points because I know you weren't a big fan of the initial, the initial series, really, as you say, it was
I wasn't. Especially the first season, especially actually, I find it was. But again, I respect the fact that sometimes you see some things that are great, but are not for you. And I always say that the Mandalorian, I can see why it's great, why people love it, but it was not meant for me because, as I said, Western is definitely my least favorite genre of movies. And it's clearly, for me, it was clearly a Western, the first 2 seasons. But I understand why people love it.
It's kind of very much. I mean, like you mentioned about the prequels, I wasn't a huge fan of the prequels, I'm more for the originals, but you can go back to those prequels because I think it's the politics. Sometimes it's just nice watching those talky bits, not really the action, but rather this whole kind of like mechanizations of the power plays that are happening. It's more like a political drama. You can watch on that level if you're a bit older and you start rewatching those, and a great performance by Ian McDermott, I think, playing a young Palpatine, and it's all very, the strings that are pulled and how he orchestrates it all. Probably the more interesting part of that whole prequel, and that's how you can keep watching it. But again, I suppose the Mandalorian, they're doing that a bit. It's I found an opposite feeling towards you in some points because this show's already had a very successful relationship, let's say, between the lone wolf and the cub, and proved very popular. Obviously, then that story kind of for me, kind of ended. Well, they ended it themselves when they reunited the
Ah,
family,
yeah.
with Lucas. And I mean, it's a great, a very emotional moment, pays off, and then it ends. And I think that story ended. Of course, I think it's with the Boba Fett that it seems like, well, we've still got to sell Disney toys, so let's
Yeah.
put them together. But honestly, that chapter of his life had finished. So, if he was passing on the baton to another Mandalorian story, then this is a great, starting point of that. But we've been messed around that we've got this little elephant in the room, or little, let's say, Grogu in the room, who's there. It's like, well, what do we do with him? And I kind of feel this series doesn't really have a narrative drive while he's in the room, because he's just there. But that aspect of that chapter's finished. Concentrate on something else. But anyway, Andrew, what do you think? You've your opinion on this season, and of course the other seasons. How does it compare for you?
Yeah, I guess I'll just touch on a couple of things. One is that I'm one of these people who actually, and maybe Richard touched on it as well. There are a lot of thoughts this season of like, where can the story kind of go from here, especially because of where season 2 ended, and then of course you have the stuff on the Book of Boba Fett. I'll get back on in a moment. But I actually liked the episode 3. I thought that was one of the episodes I kind of liked from the season, because it seemed like, where's the story with Din Djarin and Grogu going to go? Where's it going to go from where it's gone before? It's just, okay, they're trying to reestablish culture of Mandalore, planet for Mandalorians, and Grogu becoming part of this covet that Din Djarin is part of. And then there's the Bo-Katan story, Bo-Katan, excuse me.
Bo-Katan, yeah.
Bo-Katan Kryze, her story. So, and a lot of times it's sort of like varied in terms of like holding my interest, but then when we got to that third episode, I was like, okay, this is the more interesting, and how things kind of, where they transition from, the events of Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens. Even though it's a lot closer chronologically to the original trilogy than the sequel trilogy. So I actually kind of liked the third episode. I know a lot of people didn't like it. They were like, oh, you're focusing on these other characters again. Or don't do that. But I actually got interested in that story and those storylines. And it eventually did tie into what happened towards the end of the season. As far as the Book of Boba Fett goes, I thought there was a lot of potential for that story, those stories on the Book of Boba Fett, and becoming this crime boss, and having Fennec Shand and other people as enforcers, and having all those challenges as an enforcer. And then they just kind of switched over to like a 2.5, season 2.5 for The Mandalorian. So it's like, I guess I just didn't feel confident. I don't know. But looking back on the season as a whole, for The Mandalorian, I guess there wasn't, again, as much of a focus. It was sort of like, different storylines, reestablishing, the Mandalore, trying to get them back to Mandalore, starting up on that planet again. And then the whole thing with Navarro, and then that tying into the other stories. And then of course you had that episode where it was kind of like fan service, and again, I use fan service in the family friendly sense, which is multiple meanings for that word, but not fan service in the sense of, oh, these are people from other installments of the franchise. It's more like, let's see what celebrity actors and performers we can put in an episode. Like, here's Jack Black, here's Lizzo, here's Christopher Lloyd. It's nice to see Christopher Lloyd. It's always great to see him, but it's just like, okay, what's this about? Yeah. I will say it does give a great material for Ryan George for his YouTube channel. That's a whole other story. that should be more goals than just giving material to YouTubers. But I will say, and not to jump ahead too much, I did see similarities between the final 2 episodes of this season and the final 2 episodes of the final season of Picard, because it's like the penultimate episode is kind of like a cliffhanger, which leads into the final episode. And in both situations, you have this whole thing where the protagonist's like, all is lost. What are we going to do? And then you have a villain from the past returns. It's Moff Gideon on this show, and then a different set of villains on Picard, which we'll touch on a bit. Do like a cube here. So there's a lot of similarities. It's weird. I was watching back to back. I'm like, yeah, these seem very similar. It's like how are their heroes going to get out of this one? But I thought there was some good parts to this season, but overall I wasn't as crazy about it. I did like the first 2 seasons a little bit more. There was more of a focus getting Grogu back with his, with the Jedi, or remnants of the Jedi, and here it seemed like there were different focuses, but it was sort of like, what is the focus really? And I guess I like to see the idea of what it's really about anyway, is about how filling that gap between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. How did things go from one to the other? And that's, what I guess they're going to touch on with this show, and then the other, I guess the other series that are coming out. I'm not sure when they all take place, or maybe one of them.
No, I think Ahsoka will also take place in this gap. So.
Okay, I'm kind of curious about that as well, but that's for another time. So
yeah,
I'm just curious where they're going to go from here, especially assuming. I know Giancarlo Esposito is a busy actor, so I'm assuming that what we saw in the final episode of the season is final.
Well,
that he's
not going to. Let's say there's a lot of seems to be a clone tomfoolery going on in that.
Well, I thought they destroyed the clone.
Well, there was even a theory. Hey, he doesn't have his mustache. That must be the fake one. It's like that final one. Or,
throw money at Giancarlo Esposito. Say, here's a lot of money. Come back. No, he's a busy actor. He does a lot of stuff. Look at his page. There's like so, and there's other villains they could focus on. There's like that whole Shadow Council that he was talking to, and then I guess it was Hux's father that he was talking to, played by the real life actor's brother. Gleason,
Dominic, surname the actor, yes.
Yeah, but he could be one of the villains next season.
But it seems to be a nice, Empire, little remnants ring, like Ring of Evil, almost like. It's good to see their own uniforms and lots of hints at, I guess, Thrawn. He was mentioned in this season, so that's. I can see them leading to that would be the next crossover big villain, which seems to be seeding into Ahsoka, and I think they've already know there is another season of this of Mandalorian, and then after that, I guess it's going to be a culmination with Ahsoka, and then I think a movie. According to Celebration, it'll be
what about
tying it together. I think.
What about the other series like Acolyte?
Acolyte.
And,
well, I don't know how really ahead it is.
Acolyte.
That's set in the past, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Acolyte is set like 1,000 years before Phantom Menace.
Okay, so and then Skeleton Crew is also set past.
I don't know actually. I don't know when Skeleton Crew is.
Yeah.
Good point. Yeah, maybe Skeleton Crew is set after Return of the Jedi. I don't know.
And I thought one of the movies was supposed to be set way in the past, but I don't know. There's so many projects.
I know Dave Filoni's one is going to be this tying up of Mandalorian and Ahsoka's storylines. But there's quite a few years ahead for that movie.
And Boba Fett. It'll
be a crossover anyway.
And Boba Fett.
Oh yeah, sorry. How could we forget?
Oh, there's going to be a season 2 of Boba Fett.
Well,
no. I'm just saying. Technically, Boba Fett is TV show or a few episodes of Boba Fett are set also between Return of the Jedi and the sequel trilogy.
Well, if there is a second season,
Exactly. Will Lucasfilm try to?
I think he'll be keeping his helmet on, considering
Exactly, yeah.
what the
Forget-
latest actor Tamara Morrison has been a bit vocal, and I can almost agree with him. He was a bit shortchanged in his
Right, I
in the
heard that. Yeah.
series, so that's under discussion. Let's say I wouldn't miss it if it was gone. Honestly,
Yeah.
nice production values in it, and his sidekick was she's kind of like some good characters, but still, if you don't know what to do with your main character, and he is the title character, it's unless you call it book of Third Man on the Left or Gamorrean Guards, then fine, make it little books or chapters of. I don't mind. Which kind of happened, I kind of say, probably with this season of The Mandalorian, because it was The Mandalorian. This was more like Bo-Katan's or
Yeah.
Kate Sackhoff's story. He was there and supporting, fair enough, but
And
it was basically her.
Yeah, and I think that's why I liked it.
How is he?
No, but I know it's sad, but I think actually that I like more this show when it's not centered on the Mandalorian.
So yeah, Bo-Katan is kind of like reclamation of her, getting her off her deserted throne and reclaiming her as the leader and claiming Mandalore and being the leader. And so kind of follow her taking back her sword, the Darksaber, which is not the most robust of swords, as we found out, quite honestly. And so that's kind of like, that's done. But she's, I guess you'd follow on her and how she gets the clan back together, and she can take her helmet off. Seemed there were some rules for some and some for not. She walks between two worlds, and Din Djarin's going, "What the heck? Oh, so that's not a thing anymore because you've just said so." So yeah, he's kind of like that side character. And like I said, I think his story was told. It was tied in with Grogu. That was Lone Wolf and Cub. They both grew and changed, and it was completed. So having like almost Grogu there and having Din Djarin there. Din Djarin obviously, all right, in the side. But Grogu's like, you shouldn't be here. You should be back in school, young man. Quite honestly, not here. I think you kind of know this is, what kids say. What you gonna do? They don't know what they want from day to day. But I think he might be their little mascot, which I know there was talk of the Rey movie that might have a pairing with. Well, Rey will be in that movie anyway, and maybe John Boyega as well. But you may have Grogu there as well as their lucky mascot. But it's kind of like when your story's been told, what are you doing there? Especially in this season, it kind of sticks out a bit, honestly. This was a different series, and I think, as you said, you get a bit of kind of like whiplash from going. What direction are you going? Are you now telling a political story because you've got these little small chapters which take up 2 episodes, or have you gone for a more light-hearted kind of comedy detective escapade where they are guest starring and trying to find out why they're androids on that little world with Jack Black and Lizzo, as in why are it's like a who done it really, which it basically was. It's like who set up this revolt with the androids or the robots, and it's like it's a detective episode, political episode, and more of this Game of Thrones light episode arc going to it. So it's like a show trying to find out what's going to land and what it wants to be. When you've established it was that kind of genre in the first 2 seasons, and that's that is a pretty hefty run in your show, then to lose your direction now, and that direction lost because your story already got told. So where do you go now? I guess you got the backdrop of you've got series like Andor going, which is really well written, almost a straight.
That's an interesting point. But Andor, you feel Andor, but there is a guy who has been controlling everything from episode 1 to episode 10 or 12, the whole thing. Here, it feels like actually that there is 8 episodes and 8 different writers.
Absolutely, yeah, doing different shows.
Yeah, different shows, exactly.
Like an
So I thought,
anthology series, but it's not an anthology series. So
no, it's not. It's the book. Well, maybe the Christian called it the Book of Mandalorian, and I'm thinking, oh dear. But I guess they didn't want those connotations. Yeah, I think Boba Fett. I'll be surprised if they. I mean, there was a lot of announcements of happening at the last celebrations of where they were going forward, and I think the strongest canon that I can see momentum is the where you're going to have maybe a backbone of story is going to be a showcase. So I can see a handing over of Mandalorian finishing after 4 or 5 seasons at the most, quite honestly, and then handing it over to a cross episode with Ashoka, which okay, well let's follow this. But this is a time window. We kind of know what's going to happen as we know that the First Order is going to rise. So it's not that big a time window to, let's say, 20 years or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah.
So it feels like, as great as this reclamation of Mandalore is and all that thing, where are they in the films? I mean, it can't be all good news if they've, the Empire seems to, or the New Order rears its head. So I don't know how to feel. I don't know. I can appreciate the new directions going to, but you have an Andor series. Maybe not enough people are watching it, but that is just done, perfectly for what it is. If you want to make it comic light, which some of these were, these episodes were, kind of like, well, that's a different audience. So I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. Yeah. Good put to project. A lot of money at the end, but I felt a bit like almost like there's no momentum, or it's like, well, the narrative drive. I just didn't feel it coming from this season, honestly. So I'm guessing you'd get excited about watching the next season of this, but
No.
No, Richard,
No.
you're the biggest supporter here in the room.
No. I
it
mean,
could be good. I don't know.
but I guess I'm not being actually so pessimistic, because I am hopeful for different shows or movies now, in a way. But this one here, this character, yeah, for me, it's reached the end of the road, let's say. Yeah, I don't. Not only him, by the way, not only the Mandalorian, but also we said Gideon, etc. And obviously, it looks like an ending, but you never know, because in Star Wars, like in Marvel, nobody dies. But this villain, for me, yeah, that was not a good news when I understood actually that he was coming back, to be honest. And also, what was his plan exactly? Because his plan was, he's very, he has a great ego. He has a very strong ego, this guy. His plan was to create an army of himself. Right?
Yes, an army of himself.
No,
I thought,
powers.
yeah, somehow he'd isolated some. I didn't think quite perfected it. I mean, he was quite emotional when they which was quite easy, by the way, spoilers, as in getting rid of the tanks. Just basically just switch off, and they kind of like, just flood the tanks, and must have been very expensive operation to be switched off so easily. But it's very, yeah. I thought this was an arc of the clones, so they were hinting even at previous seasons that maybe it was Snoke that they're trying to
because
create at this point.
Talking about Snoke, that's what I didn't understand in the first place. I understood it was an army of himself only in the last episode, because at the end of the 7th episode, you have these red guards who look like actually kind of Sith or Force sensitive, and I was thinking,
Victorian guards.
But I was thinking, so this is what he's creating. I was thinking about it. I was thinking, this is what he's been creating. He's creating an army of these red guys that we see in The Last Jedi or something. I say, okay, fair enough. And then no, it wasn't.
I think it was
really him.
I thought he was creating like the Dark Troopers, but that was just because of the Beskar armor. So I don't know. I thought that's what he was trying to create.
Well, he had quite a few plans on the go. I mean, that's why he was on Mandalore, because he said, I think as an army, I've kitted them out in Beskar armor. Again, a very expensive operation to put all your troops. Beskar armor, which you assume is a very rare ore, and that's why you have this clan of Mandalorians almost based around Beskar. You know, so it was a religious mineral. But no, let's just get out. Oh god, and they wiped out a lot of them, even despite that. But then yeah, I thought these clones would be almost with the Phoenix Project or whatever it was called. I thought it was going to be Palpatine. It's like the hints because it's all
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, me too. Yeah.
Oh, okay. We knew he's coming back, so somehow he returned. Let's see how he returned. But no, and then I thought, okay, well, next best it's Snoke. Fair enough. But
and also he was doing that by himself. He wasn't. He was doing this Gideon guy was actually not doing that for the Empire, but for his personal glory, because he lied to the other guys from the Shadow Council. Because at some point he talks about the clones, and he denies something. I don't remember the dialogue, but he says something to another of the, I don't know, high rank guy, admiral, whatever, and he tells him that the clones, he was never interested in them. It was more of
right, the other guys, yeah.
Yeah,
and he was like saying like, oh yeah, you're interested in that one doctor guy. It's like, oh well, we're not really.
That's not my speciality. I'm not really doing anything about that. So yeah, very, very much.
So perhaps his plan was to literally take over the galaxy, literally, not actually with an army of himself.
I guess so. I guess so. I guess the Thrawn, and I don't know if Palpatine from his little zombie chair is actually controlling, maybe made himself known. Or I guess he's building all those Star Destroyers underneath the sand on whatever planet he's on.
I'm pretty sure Thrawn is working for Palpatine. The reason I'm saying that is because it would make sense, but also because Thrawn, historically is a strong word because we're talking about sci-fi, but historically in the books, Thrawn comes from the unknown regions where Palpatine is supposed to be hiding, whatever.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, of course.
That's where he grew up. That's why actually he became who he is now, etc. So it would make sense that he knew all along that Palpatine's secret plan, whatever.
So I assume then the Shadow Council would infer or have a hint that Palpatine or Snoke probably at that point is we have a new leader waiting in the wings, and this is all where we're a council in the first place. But then so they as you say they're not aware of he's doing his own thing.
I don't know actually how much these guys know about the overall and ending plan of the first and final order, whatever they call it. But one of the guys, again, in holograms at that scene, I think that's the one that Andrew was mentioning before. The old guy, they call him Captain Pellaeon. Captain Pellaeon is actually in Star Wars, and not in the Legends, but in the original movies. Pellaeon actually was the captain of the fleet that was defeated at the Battle of Endor.
Oh.
And Pellaeon Pellaeon in the books about Admiral Thrawn that I read and I loved in the 90s, Pellaeon was actually the second in command of Admiral Thrawn. Oh. So that's why he referred to, but that's why Gideon is asking him, where is Admiral Thrawn? Why actually he doesn't show himself, etc. If Pellaeon is still the same guy, let's say, perhaps he knows more than anyone else about what the plan, let's say. But I don't think that all the other people know anything about Palpatine and Snoke yet. That's my guess. Honest.
Yeah. I'm guessing. Yeah, I'm guessing Snoke is still away down the line. But I guess when the New Order comes out, because I think they say the New Order just comes out and starts taking over very quickly. Kind of like that's why the rebels were trying to catch up. So down the line, I guess 20 years or whatever. So for now, I mean, Thrawn seemed a very enticing. Especially in the expanded years, it was one of those breakout, really great written villains, and luckily now Lucasfilm suddenly seems to have discovered it, they didn't know, obviously they didn't, according to them, they didn't have any material to work with, but suddenly they're all creeping back in.
Yeah.
So I see that more heading towards more Ashoka's story more than
Oh, yeah,
Din
yeah.
Djarin's.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's like heading towards to try to do that crossover, like you were saying before.
So I don't know where the Mandalorian or Mandalore story will go now, because I assume by the First Order they're kind of gone, really, so it's not going to be looking good anyway. But I don't know. Ooh, it's because I think that's the only other series we got, isn't it? It's the I don't know what the Skeleton Key. I think it's
Maybe
Jude Law
yeah,
on a boat with some kids. It's kind of like I don't know. I don't know what market that
It
is.
sounds like another Jude Law project right now. You say it like that, yeah.
So it's probably I think that's aimed probably a younger demographic of like almost a Disney kids show almost. So.
Okay. So Skeleton Crew is set 5 years after Return of the Jedi.
Oh, so
Well, that's around the same time period as this. So.
as this
Yeah,
then.
yeah.
Or
Oh,
roughly.
Yeah.
okay.
Well, I don't know how they're gonna connect this, but yeah, yeah.
In one episode and then wrapped up in another episode. And
Yeah,
then,
exactly. Yeah,
And then it'll become another show altogether. It'll be like,
yeah, exactly.
like
Yeah.
2.5 or whatever.
I don't know. In the shows before this, I know a lot of fans have been falling by the wayside as they've been made. They weren't too fond, let's say, of the sequels, but they had a lot of hope with Obi-Wan. Didn't quite pan out. Again, a bit of a maybe. Well, that's the thought of it being a film spread over 6 or whatever, 8 episodes, whatever it was. The more interesting aspect of that Obi-Wan show was when they were looking back at the past, when it was maybe the prequel era, and if you want that little nice, instead of a post Skywalker world, that little Clone Wars series live action would have been far more interesting, or something set in the past. Ashoka itself has a time limit. I mean, that's set before the New Order. I assume it's not going to be good news for when because I don't see them in the films, or I missed it when I was watching it. The Jedi.
You think we're all dying? They're all gonna die before Force Awakens. Yeah.
Spoilers.
Yeah.
Unless
because
they're
you don't
like
hear
hiding
about them.
somewhere, or like I don't know.
Well, what a time to hide, eh? I think
No.
Yeah, because that's what happens. You think a character is dead, and then they're like, "Oh, there they are. They're just hiding."
They will find a boring
that-
excuse. They will find a boring excuse, and for example, Ezra or Ashoka or both will show up in the Rey movies about the new Jedi Order.
It reminds me of
where were you? Where were you when you first met? I didn't know.
they were flash sharing with the Eternals from the MCU. I'm guessing
Exactly.
when the Endgame was happening. They were busy that night. I'm guessing. I don't know. I don't know. Ashoka comes out this year, so it's at least, even if you're done with Mandalorian, great production value. I gotta say. I mean, it looks nice. They know what they're doing. It's just a lot of these characters come in, come out. For various reasons, and the show, there seems to be a bit of, I feel it's lost its wind, or its first wind or second wind almost, and it's you give it to Bo-Katan or give it to Shoka, but that I just don't know where to go with them. That's what my feeling is. It felt a bit lost. It was basically the first episode, and then the last two was their Din Djarin story, if there was one, and then everything else was let's just see what happens. But
yeah,
I think one of the other criticisms was about how they're on this beach and they keep getting attacked by all these like giant CGI whatever. And it's like, do you think they'd be like in a better spot? And so when you get to that final scene of the season, where they're in the mines of Mandalore, and they're like on that, and you think like, oh, are they going to get attacked by a mythosaur?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I've thought about that as well.
But then opens his eye, and like, oh, okay, is that going to happen again?
yeah, it's Yeah. I was expecting the Mythosaur to make another appearance, as in Bo-Katan said, "I saw it," and then it's kind of like then she rides the Mythosaur. But I guess it's something for the next season.
Well, they probably didn't have the CGI budget,
Yeah, exactly.
They spent it on Jack Black's budget, I guess, on his feet.
or Lizzo and
And Lizzo.
yeah.
That was a bit of a tone change, but I actually like the the uprising, or not the uprising. It was the kind of like the stopping of work of the androids who were just chilling out. They almost felt sorry for flesh beings, because they thought, well, it's the least we can do. They have such short lifespans. I don't know why they would go to a bar just to get lubrication. I don't know. I guess it's an issue about AI, which maybe is lost a bit, because they seem to be very chillaxed, or the droid. They just want to get on with it. But it was good to see the designs of it and everything. But again, it felt a very almost comedic show. And when you've got these cameos going in, it just pulls you out of it completely.
Absolutely.
Thinking.
Yeah.
So I kind of I can see why there's a lot of criticism of that. And, I mean, Star Wars should be its own world, and then remove it from the modern day culture. And so I think it just doesn't know where to place it as in pop culture. Let's put in a new boy band guest starring, appearing in it, and it's not a way to go. But anyway, it is what it is. Right. Well, I think that kind of we cover that. I think for Mandalorian, and we'll see what comes down the pipe in the next season.
Yeah.
For now, thank you to Andrew and Richard, and on our Mandalorian season 3 special. Thanks, and see you next time.
We hope you enjoyed this film and TVreview.com episode. Catch the latest film and TV reviews, together with regular episode content from the world of film and TV every week. See you soon. Would you like to reach our film and TV review podcast audience? Do you have a product or service of interest to film and TV home consumers or followers of the entertainment industry? Have a film or show production to publicize? For affordable price plans for all budgets, get in touch and find out about our introductory advertising options. Reach our audience of film and TV viewers and visit our site contact page at filmandtvreview.com, or you can email us at business@filmandtvreview.com. Reach out today.